Good morning, I'm Kristen Folletti and welcome to News Desk on SiliconANGLE TV for Tuesday, July 9th, 2013. Is the current educational model broken, and does technology hold the solution to mending it? Join us now to discuss tech's potential for improving traditional education is SiliconANGLE head writer and correspondent Winston Edmondson. Good morning, Winston. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Education is a $4 trillion industry, which is 3 times the size of mobile. And there's no shortage of news stories that talk about cutting-edge technologies that are set to change the face of education. Juan Lopez Valserel, Chief Digital Officer at global education technology company Pearson, gave a talk at this year's The Next Web Conference Europe, in which he spoke about a number of exciting education tech trends. But he said there are still barriers. So Winston, can you start us off by explaining those barriers and how the concept of what Juan calls invisible computing offers a solution?
Certainly. I think the biggest barrier is actually the culture within a school district. So before I talk about invisible education, let's talk about invisible administration. You can look to examples like LISD, Louisville Independent School District, where they brought in Dr. Stephen Waddell, who had a very open mind to technology, and he actually instituted a lot of changes that are embracing these technology, all these technology trends. So you're seeing education actually changing before your eyes. So that's probably the biggest barrier. You need to have an administration that's willing to adopt some of these exciting yet disruptive technologies. But what they were talking about in terms of barriers were, yes, using a tablet or using a computer in the classroom, that can obviously have a lot of benefits, but what if you forget your tablet, or what if the tablet's not working? What they're talking about is invisible computing, in the sense that what if everything functions as a computer or can be a part of an interactive learning experience? So if you look at some of the technology that Microsoft is doing with their Surface, they had the table, the complete table was a computer, a touchscreen device. Mm-hmm. Things like that in the classroom, where the desk might actually work as a computer, or what the students say might automatically be annotated and incorporated into the lesson. So invisible computing is a trend that's pretty exciting, in that the future could be one that students just show up and learning kind of just starts taking place around them without them having to physically bring books or devices or things like that.
In what ways might teachers be able to use smart data to the benefit of the students of the future?
Well, big data is, we all know about big data and how exciting that is. So smart data is kind of an extension of that, in that in the classroom, there's a lot of information that the students are creating, everything from how quickly they finish assignments, how often they get their homework in on time, their grades. Well, so what smart data does is, a system can analyze all that information and crunch those numbers and give the teacher some very powerful forecasting tools. So rather than saying, okay, we've got a test tomorrow and hope everyone does well, the teacher can look at a chart that shows the students that are based on data, more likely to do well, and the students that, based on data, might have difficulty with that test. She can give those students individual attention and try to bring them up to speed, or do things that are customized for each student, rather than just say, okay, everyone, we're taking a test. It empowers the teacher with information, so he or she can take steps to help everyone succeed.
Another point of discussion was the opportunity for body language assessment in the classrooms of the future. Now, is that a skill that would need to be taught to teachers, or is that something that smart technology could offer?
Well, that is a tool that a teacher could learn, a skill that a teacher could learn, but really there's a lot of technology out there that could be incorporated, pretty exciting stuff that the teacher would not have to physically be watching and studying each student. So take, for example, the new Samsung Galaxy S4. It has eye tracking technology that, is watching where your eyes are, and it's scrolling the web page for you. That technology could very well be used to look at facial expression and determine if a student is perplexed or is understanding of the topic. I actually had a great conversation with the head programmer at Netflix about this type of technology used for them. Take something like the Kinect sensor from the Xbox 360 and the upcoming console, the Xbox One. It's always on, it's always watching. It could use that technology to study body language. For Netflix, we were talking about as you're watching a program, if you are into the program or a particular scene, your body language reflects that. And they would be able to create content based on those areas of existing content that are successful. Teachers, in the same way, could have something like that, even an Xbox device with a Kinect sensor up that's monitoring the entire classroom, and based on the way we are, I mean, humans are very expressive, so based on that body language, facial expression, we can see, okay, which students have a mastery of the topic, which students are falling behind. You can read a lot from body language, and so this technology in the classroom is a really exciting advance.
Another point in his keynote was that educational games still have a long way to go. So what's this idea surrounding what he calls stealth learning?
So the gamification of education is another exciting trend that is not just in the classroom, in primary levels, but it extends all the way up to corporate America and the education that needs to take place there. So there are a lot of subject matters that just looking at a book or getting instruction from an individual isn't the best way or the most effective way to. There are a number of topics that actually playing or going through scenarios in the form of a game are much more effective. And so incorporating that into the classroom is going to have a lot of ramifications in that you might have a class where everyone has a controller and they're playing, at their own speed a video game at their desk. Looks like everyone's just slacking off, when in actuality, they're actually all learning from the game. So you take, for example, this isn't what you'd see in the classroom, but take, for example, the game Assassin's Creed. This last version took place in the American Revolution, and I don't know how careful they were to make sure that all the facts were accurate, but you have a lot of information that is, that the user, as they're playing the game, is experiencing, and without even thinking about it, you're learning. You're learning when George Washington went to a certain area. You're learning, kind of the backstory of what happened in history. So if you take that, a lot of things you can do with language and a lot of topics that are more easily expressed and more effectively learned through the gamification. So that's a great trend that I think we'll see again in the classroom and in corporate America.
And what about social learning? What benefits might students see from social learning?
What they're finding is that if you can change your communication from the teacher to better reflect what the type of communication that takes place amongst children, if you can mimic that or mirror that, it's easier for them to grasp. So, the trends in social are changing daily. Facebook is in one day, the next day it's moving towards Tumblr. But if you have an environment, a school district that is actively trying to follow those trends and pattern some of their learning to reflect that, you've got a great opportunity to immediately interact with those children. So again, if they're not in classroom, they have to learn a brand new way, or their community, the teacher is comfortable, that's limiting. But if you can communicate to them in a way that is already normal, it's what they do on Instagram, it's what they do on Facebook. That's just one area that they don't have to even think about, and the learning happens at a faster pace. So, that's an area where teachers aren't always comfortable in trying to communicate in that way, but the teachers that are willing to embrace it and give it a shot are finding that those kids really are getting the information faster, and they're retaining it better.
Well, Winston, it looks like that's our time for this morning, but thank you so much for joining us for this discussion.
Thanks a lot.
And you can catch up on all that's new in tech news. Your SiliconANGLE Daily Roundup fills you in next here on News Desk.